The anticipation for the final season of the Thousand Year Blood War arc of Bleach is ramping up, with the release of the first true teaser trailer just before Christmas. We reacted to the teaser trailer, we broke down the teaser trailer shot by shot, and now it's time for some predictions. With only 13 episodes to go until the Thousand Year Blood War arc anime is over, barring any surprise 14th episode like last time, it feels like such an incredibly small amount of space to fit absolutely everything in. And yet I think it can be done, and in a way that feels truly satisfying too. With Core 3 reaching right the way to the halfway point of chapter 661, that means there's fewer than 25 chapters of the manga left to cover, freeing up a massive amount of room for new scenes, new fights, and more. So, in today's video, we're going to be taking a quick look at what we know should be in the final core thanks to the manga, discuss some ideas for new scenes that Part 4 might realistically feature, and make some overall more Hail Mary style predictions for how the core might play out. Of course, it's all speculation at the end of the day, but who knows? Maybe we'll strike gold with some of our guesses. Before any of that, however, I hope everyone had a fantastic Christmas. I hope you got some wonderful Bleach-related gifts. If you did, do please let me know down in the comments below. And of course, consider hitting subscribe as well to help support the channel moving into 2026. I really would appreciate it. And of course, if you hadn't guessed by now, there will be spoilers, major spoilers. I mean, we'll be spoiling literally everything that happens in the remainder of the Thousand Year Blood War arc anime to come, so just be aware of that. So, going into Part 4, what's actually left from the manga that still needs to be adapted? Truth be told, not a huge amount. At this point, it's really just the final few fights that we still need to see. Of the fights remaining, the one we've seen the most of in the anime so far is Kisuke and Yoruichi versus Askin, which is saying something, considering Kisuke hasn't even shown up yet. But most of the preliminary fighting there is done. You know, Yushiro's been taken care of, so we're moving on to the next stage. We're still waiting on essentially the entire main portion of that battle, to be fair, which I'm very excited for. In fact, considering Kisuke has my favourite BANKAI and Askin is my favourite Sternritter, that might currently be the showdown I'm the most looking forward to. Which is a little ironic, as it's also the one that I'm probably expecting to be changed the least here in the anime, so I feel like I should know what's coming. Then there's the Gote 13 versus Gerard, which, right now, feels very up in the air regarding how it might all play out, but the point is that we've still seen virtually nothing of this showdown from the manga version yet either. And obviously a big part of that is down to how the Vizard are being treated here. After that, we've obviously got Uryu versus Hashwolf, which, as we know from the first teaser trailer, is seemingly getting the anime treatment, thankfully. Now, I guess this actually might be the fight we've technically seen the most from in the anime already, since there's very little left to actually see in the manga, beyond these two characters talking, and then a quick back and forth of their shrift. And then, of course, we have the final two fights, the only two that haven't yet been featured in the anime at all, being Ichigo and Orihime versus Yhwach, and then the very final battle. Once they're all done, we still have the epilogue, but seeing as it was a whopping 2 chapters long in the manga, I mean, that's like a third of an episode at best in the Thousand Year Blood War arc era. So, what could the new content of Part 4 realistically constitute? Again, this is total speculation, but based on how Core 3 was treated, it feels like there are a few possibilities that range from slight tweaks to the narrative that help to either streamline the story or make it flow and read better, which we saw a lot of around the Soul King's death, right the way across to major overhauls of significant plot points, completely new fights like, of course, Renji versus Uryu, and more. When it comes to extended fights in Part 4, Uryu vs Hashwolf is the obvious pick, and thankfully the first teaser trailer was seemingly designed to allay fears early on, making sure to highlight that this was absolutely happening. This is on the cards. I mean, I've gone on record before saying the fight needed a total reworking, to be honest, a complete transformation from the version we got in the manga. Whether we'll get something of that scale or not, I'm unsure. The closest we've really come to anything of that scope was of course the Zero Division versus the Schutzstaffel, and even then, the anime made sure to use and incorporate everything from the manga while building on it all in new ways. But at the same time, we really are in the endgame now, and this is the portion of the Thousand Year Blood War arc in the manga that most people will look to and say that needed the most work. That's where the arc kind of fell off the rails. And I do agree to some extent. I mean, the evidence is right there before us in fights like Uryu vs Hashwolf. These are high-caliber, major battles that were let down in a way that we simply haven't really seen throughout the rest of the Thousand Year Blood War arc before this, save for, you guessed it, the Zero Division versus the Schutzstaffel. So I would anticipate changes on that kind of scale to come here as well. From a purely selfish perspective, I'd love to see Kisuke versus Askin receive an extension too. I mean, their fight in the manga is 3 chapters long, which is criminally short. Whether that means we get to see even more from Kisuke's Bankai, or perhaps he even uses his Shikai for a bit first. Either way, their fight is my favourite from the Varvelt arc, but as I said, it's just so short. Aside from those battles, I don't necessarily see any of the other fights receiving significant extensions, barring maybe the final battle. But the final battle is a weird one, because I could totally see Ichigo, Aizen, Uryu, and Renji versus Yhwach getting an extension of some kind. In fact, I think it's probably going to happen. But also, I think the way that fight will play out ultimately depends heavily on how much of the core is changed prior to that showdown. But I mean, if we're gonna see Aizen's Bankai at all, well, it'll be during the final fight. Moving on though, and even more exciting than extended fights are the brand new fights. And unsurprisingly, these have been few and far between in the anime. Even something like Ichigo versus the Bambis isn't technically a brand new fight so much as it's an extended fight. Ichigo still fights the Bambis in the manga in that place in the timeline. I'd say the most significant, completely new fight, so one that did not exist in the manga at all, one that was built from the ground up fully anime, is either Renji versus Uryu or Senjumaru versus Uryu, both of which occur in Core 3. Renji versus Uryu is obviously huge because they used to be former allies. Renji gets to really showcase his true Bankai in full, but in terms of the gravity of the situation, Senjumaru versus Uryu is almost certainly bigger, I would say, as Uryu actually kills a member of the Zero Division. Of course, Ichigo versus Uryu is also huge in its own right and also appeared in Core 3 as well, but I don't think it's got quite the same level of what feels like might be repercussions as something like Uryu versus Senjumaru does. Like, that is a pretty cataclysmic shift away from the original manga, in that Uryu actually kills a member of the Zero Division. Like, that seems like them really trying to cement him as a villain. But to receive another new battle of that caliber would be fantastic, though it's hard to know exactly where it would be positioned. That being said, there are a few candidates. Obviously, we don't know quite what the anime team has planned for Isshin and Ryuken, but it's significant that the two fathers arrived in Varvelt an entire volume's worth of chapters early, which is plenty of time for a new fight to be concocted. Whether it counts as a completely new fight or not, if they simply join one of the ongoing fights, I'm not sure. I would say it probably does, as a totally new combatant represents a gigantic shift away from the manga. If, say, Isshin joins the Gotei 13 in their war against Gerard, or Ryuken joins Uryu in the fight with Hashwolf, that would represent a completely new fight, in my opinion. And speaking of which, the Vizard are primed for a totally new fight against Gerard, as it seems the manga's version has essentially been overwritten, at least in regards to chronology, and a bunch of new fighters have joined in as well. Shinji, Rose, Kensei, and Mashiro have all turned up to actually battle Gerard in a brand new scenario. Shinji was wiped out by Gerard instantly in the manga, whereas here he's still going. Mashiro was nowhere to be seen because Kubo forgot she existed, and Rose and Kensei were still zombies being treated down in the Seirete at this point in time. But no, here in the anime, everyone has arrived. Obviously, we don't know how it'll turn out just yet, but for now it's looking like a brand new battle. And there are other potentially smaller fights that could still happen as well. We could see Izuru cleaning up the Lille Flamingos, for example, which I guess would technically be a new fight, although maybe that's more of an extension since I guess they do square off in the manga. And then there's whatever happens with Chad and Ganju beyond fighting the statues, if anything. Plus, could the Fullbringers get a new actual fight of some kind? I'd certainly like to see that. If Yhwach does in fact conjure up some deceased Stern Ritter made of Soul King energy, as is a theory I've been espousing for ages now, that'll give everyone something new and maybe meaningful to do in the finale. Considering the anime seems to be taking a pretty big swing regarding the Vizard versus Gerard, I don't think anything is really off the table here. And everyone is expecting, Isshin and Ryuken to get involved somehow, beyond the little they did in the manga. Then there are the flashbacks, of which I'm hoping to get at least a couple. Of course, the biggest one is the story of the Soul King. It's time. The 1000-Year Blood War arc anime has teased this now over the course of its entire run so far, introducing us to Reo in part 1, showing Ichigo the brief glimpses of his past in part 2, and then finally revealing his true name Adnias, and even showing us our first ever look at the primordial world in part 3. It's safe to say it's all coming together. Now they just need to see it home. The best way to do that would be, in my opinion, to just show us the unadulterated full version of the flashback they've been teasing so far. Show us Adnias splitting the three worlds. Show us how and why he did it. And of course, show us the aftermath. Why did his body fall apart? What's with the ceremonial sword? Where did it come from, and how does it work? What was Ichibei doing there, and why does he look so sinister? Does the anime plan on connecting this to the events as they are explained in Can't For Your Own World, or is it going in a completely new direction? And yeah, let us know what's going on with Yhwach too. What's up with him turning into a baby here in the Core 3 flashback, and why was he seemingly covered in black? Is it simply because he was suddenly cast into the new cycle of rebirth by his father? If you can't tell, we need answers. There's a part of me that wonders if this could even be the very first thing we see in the core. In the same way Core 2 opened with a cryptic look at Yhwach's birth or creation, this core would open with a flashback to the primordial world and show us everything. No more of this grainy filter that's designed to obfuscate the images. I want to see it clear as day. Before then bringing us back to the present and revealing that it was all a dream the sleeping Yhwach was having while killing the Bambis. Dedicate 10 minutes or so of the first episode to it, and that's all you'd really need. I'd love more, of course, but I'm trying to be realistic. In my opinion, the Soul King, and those intimately connected to him, Ichibei, Gerard, Yhwach even, is the last true remaining mystery of the 1000-Year Blood War arc. The last missing puzzle piece. For the anime to wrap all of that up, would be one of its biggest long-standing successes, and I truly hope to see it. In terms of other flashbacks, I think a couple are pretty much, I don't want to say guaranteed, but it does feel like there is a great chance of seeing them. Earlier, I mentioned that I'd love to see Kisuke vs. Askin extended. And, well, I think there's a really high chance we get a new flashback, showing us the earliest days of Kisuke and Yoruichi meeting, and why Kisuke and perhaps Tessai too spent so much time growing up in the Shihoin manor together. This is something Kubo has gone on record before, saying he was close to including in the manga, but simply ran out of time. So this seems like a great way to incorporate that story at last. And then, another flashback that I think is pretty much assured is the reveal of what exactly happened when Uryu survived Yhwach's Auswählen, and why his mother, Katagiri, was killed. One of Core 3's, I would say, most surprising revelations was the fact that Uryu seemed to be affected by the Auswählen after all, completely upending, contradicting even everything we thought we knew about his story in this arc. Instead, it seems like Uryu either unintentionally used some form of the antithesis to reverse the situation between himself and his mother, or, more likely in my opinion, Katagiri found some way to save him at the cost of her own life. I was absolutely surprised to see this scene in the anime, but it needs resolving, and I think it's very likely that that happens in Core 4. The question is, when? It's totally possible that Hashwalth explains more of what makes Uryu special during their battle, but I also wonder if Ryuken might tell Uryu what happens to Katagiri in full when they eventually meet, however that happens. These feel like the most likely flashbacks to me, though of course I wouldn't say no to a flashback for someone like Askin, but that isn't likely to happen. I'd rather we learned more about who or what Gerard really is, to be honest anyway, as Askin's already a pretty well-rounded and fleshed out character. When it comes to totally new plot points, well, considering we are right at the end of the story, it is hard to envision how they might fit in. That being said, something definitely seems to be going on with Ukitake, and so whatever that might lead to, if anything, could certainly be a new plot point even this late in the game. Meanwhile, the truth behind Uryu's survival, as mentioned a moment ago, while not technically a new plot point as it was brought up in the manga, is also definitely something the manga seemed to drop altogether, and it's only now that we're finally, seemingly, getting a resolution. Another potential story point, though one that has been threaded throughout the arc so far, is Uryu possibly having some kind of connection to the Almighty, or maybe even acquiring a form of the Almighty for himself. I mentioned in my trailer breakdown video that it seems like Hashwalth and Uryu may in fact be discussing that reveal during their new fight, but again, we'll have to see. And then one final plot point that I think the anime could and absolutely should cover, as I think it would be quite easy to do so, would be the rescuing of Harabel from the Vandenrijk's prison. We know that Nell and Grimjo go and get her out, thanks to Can't For Your Own World, and I'd love to see that brought to life here in the anime, and I think it should be fairly easy to do, based on the timeline that I'm expecting these episodes to kind of follow. Askin, for example, should probably be dead by maximum episode 3, which is obviously a shame, but there you go. But that means that Nell has plenty of time to rescue Grimjo, to heal up Grimjo even just a bit, and then we see this subplot threaded even a little bit throughout the rest of the core. I'd love to see it, and I think it makes total sense as well to actually give the Aranka something to do. And then, finally, how will the anime end? In a sense, this is the single most important question and prediction on this list, because what happens at the end of the Thousand Year Blood War arc anime could potentially shape the future of the Bleach franchise, both in the short and long term. Really, there are 3 possibilities in my opinion. The first, and I guess least interesting, would be for the anime to just end in the exact same way as the manga. Oh sure, the epilogue itself might be fleshed out, and I certainly hope so, The anime version of the ending needs to ensure, as a baseline, that every character who was left out of the manga epilogue actually gets to make an appearance here, to plug any potential loose ends left over from the fighting. I'm talking characters like Kisuke, Yoruichi, Grimjo, Ishin, Ryuken, and more. Maybe even show us any surviving Stern Ritter if the anime plans to line up with Can't Fear Your Own World at all. And considering Core 3 made a point of basically showing us where every fighter currently involved in the battle was as it came to an end in episode 40, I'm feeling pretty good about this one. But yes, this would ultimately be the safest and maybe even most likely way to end the Thousand Year Blood War arc anime, as it ended in the manga with the 10-year time skip, culminating in the reveal of Rukia's promotion to captain, and then showing us the Kurosaki household, including Kazui and Ichika. The end. A slightly more exciting way to end the anime, however, would be to adapt the prologue of Can't Fear Your Own World, which again is something I have advocated for a while now. While the novel's main story takes place 6 months after the war, the prologue takes place in the immediate aftermath, which is criminally completely skipped over in the manga. It shows the coming together of all these disparate parties in the wake of the war, and reveals the fate of the new Soul King, which is absolutely imperative to understanding the state of the post-war world, whether you want to adapt Can't Fear Your Own World in its entirety or not. Aizen is placed back in prison, the Ranka return to Waco Mundo, and we get to see Ichibei once again. In my opinion, it's a necessity, and it would fit into the anime perfectly. The thing is, even if the anime team has no plans to adapt the light novels, and hell, even if they go out of their way to decanonize some of their events, there's absolutely no real reason this prologue can't be included in some fashion before the 10-year time skip. If they adhere directly to the manga, frankly, that final episode is going to be jarring, moving immediately from Ichigo killing Yhwach to a decade later like that. The prologue makes for an excellent bridge. But of course, the most exciting way for the anime to end, and probably the least likely in my opinion, is for them to adapt 2021's Hell chapter, or at least tease that it's coming, thereby potentially paving the way for the Hell arc to come as well. Look, I know some people wanted to hear an update on the Hell arc at Jump Festa, but I've always been adamant that we wouldn't hear anything else about that until after the Thousand Year Blood War arc anime was done. It just doesn't make sense to release information about something that would undoubtedly eclipse the current project in terms of excitement, and yes, for as fantastic as the anime is, certainly die-hard Bleach fans like myself would be way more excited for the Hell arc than even the final core, were it suddenly to be confirmed to be real. Again, I think this is probably the least likely option, if for no other reason than it would get people's hopes up regarding an anime adaptation of the future Hell arc to come, when they may not want to commit to anything of the sort for years down the road. Alright everyone, but that's it for today's video. As always, I do hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you took something of value away from it as well. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. I'd love to hear how you feel about my predictions for Core 4. Now that we've had the first teaser trailer, how are you feeling about new fights, extended fights, new flashbacks, additional plot points, how the ending might play out? Let me know your thoughts on all of that down in the comments below. I really would love to read them. Alright everyone, once again I hope you had a fantastic Christmas. Consider hitting subscribe if you haven't done already, as it does help support the channel. Maybe give it a thumbs up or a hype if you enjoyed it as well. And of course, an enormous thank you and a continuous shout out goes out to my wonderful supporters over on Patreon. I really couldn't do this without you. It does help so very much. If you want to get your name in the credits of every single video as a patron supporter, that helps take the support for the channel to its next level, and to get every single video free of YouTube ads, consider supporting me over on Patreon as well. The most popular tier is the $2 a month tier that gets you all of that I just mentioned, so do please consider supporting the channel. It does make a huge difference. Alright everyone, until next time, I'll catch you later, and I'll see you then.